Your information security team needs to be aligned to your business. Your information security team should be able to clearly understand who in the business does what job, the process about how, the needs for why, and the circumstances around it. This is really important because organizations have jobs, and the jobs that happen range from acquisition and purchase in your customer lifecycle all the way through disposal. This also parallels the software development lifecycle. So this video series is going to focus very much on these consumption jobs, related jobs, and we'll also dig into emotional jobs that are related to all of this. So your security team has one job first, right? We're going to talk briefly about information security. Malicious cyber actors are this red line. These black bars are things we can do to protect our information. So we want to raise deterrence, and we want to have our malicious cyber actor abandon their efforts. Then we want to move to protection, and we want to prevent anybody who gets past our deterring methods. Then we need to have detection, and we want to have the movement detected with these things: proactive, detective, responsive, actions, and controls. Example, a fence, a security system, and then something that disables or turns off a computer system if it's breached or shuts it down safely. So we want to have detection, and then ultimately we want to have enough knowledge to adapt to this malicious cyber actors' techniques, tactics, or procedures. So how do all these teams communicate about risk, right? You have to do a couple things. You have to understand objective scopes and boundaries. Your organization needs to define events and cyber events, two different components. These are political, geopolitical, weather, computer stuff. And then make a score. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever your number system is, write it down. Then you move to phase 2, information gathering. You need system diagrams, interviews, and manuals for defining your system description. We're going to move to how that system description goes into the boundary conditions. What your security team needs to do is be able to have a technical approach, define your targeting details, define system targeting profiles, the critical needs, play through some attack scenarios, deliver an attack payload in a test environment, and define what is that high consequence event you're trying to prevent. An outage of your production server is much different than the outage of a regular user in your enterprise that can't access their email. Understand high consequence events and really reduce the confusion about it. Now, what do you need to consider, right? You need to identify your cyber assets associated with a critical asset. That's your business process. We talked about that earlier, but we'll do a quick dive right here. This business process. If this is interrupted, then your information security team needs to find the process that makes all of this secure. Your acquisitions, receiving. So align your business process to the information and computing systems that they use. Come over here. It's not a complete inventory. We're not worried about every single computer. We're worried about the structure of the organization. And we want to identify your cyber assets that impact reliable operation of a critical asset. A critical asset is something that a business process rides on. Again, a critical asset is something that a business process rides on. We're going to identify all of those components. We're going to break them down into the types of devices, the roles and functions, and the secondary or supporting systems that make them work. Uninterruptible power, HVAC, standalone virus scanners, right? So we want to understand the roles and functions that those systems do, and we want to understand where compromise would impact our organization. So how do we get into this process, right? How do we achieve what that high consequence events is? We need to have our attack scenarios, 1, 2, 3 to N, and then we need to come down here and we need to understand our targets. Our targets are those critical assets, something a business process rides on. So we're going to do that. On the right side, we're going to be able to quantify our hardware details, software details, configuration files, firmware, protocols, operating system, model, vendor. I sound like I'm reading the end of one of those commercials on TV. We need to know all of this because without this intimate knowledge of the organization, without these targeting details, it's very easy to fall outside of an objective, a scope, or a boundary. Then we have to understand our technical approach. How are we going to access, action, time, and trigger these systems. Think about this. If you were going to break into a facility, you know, you want to understand the controls and how to bypass those controls. This is the same thing that malicious actors are doing. So we want to do that, and we're going to ask ourselves, do I have enough details to perform this penetration test? No. What do? OSINT, right? Go back, do your intelligence strategies, and then update your database system targeting knowledge base. So we're going to go into updating this in this same video, right? Here, as we are footprinting an organization, we're doing a penetration test. We've used the NICE framework. The NICE framework clearly identifies the scopes of tech workers. Now you can put this together for an organization. Small organizations will probably have these roles filled with multiple people, making them much more susceptible to exploitation. Hiring information security teams ranges from securely provisioning from risk management all the way to systems development. These are the components that come together to put an organization together. If you're a new startup, you probably have one person doing all of this. Then we go into our operate and maintain, from data administration to systems analysis, oversee and govern, protect and defend, analyze, collect and operate, and lastly, our investigative teams. Quick note aside, these are all jobs in the information and cybersecurity fields. So what we have here is Monday.com. Monday.com is a very useful no and low code tool that lets you manage and oversee information. So we've got our high level group, our risk management teams, and we have work roles. So when we talk about identity access management, let's say our systems administrator team, we know what they do. They install, configure, troubleshoot, and maintain server configurations. Great. So let's dive into this. They're going to do some server work. Let's see if we can find server admin systems. So we're going to search for systems, information systems security manager, systems administrator. Yeah, I want them to have that role. So we were able to really understand that now they are responsible for setting up and they install, configure, and troubleshoot. So we have clear understandings of what this role does for our business. We can come back here, right? And we can understand what is the job, right? What is the desired outcomes? How do we break the status quo? What's observed, table stakes, underserved, irrelevant. We can start to put all of this together if we do great documentation and build an identity access management program that integrates project management. So now we understand the systems administration, we understand the description, we understand the other details about what they do. The dog is here. I'm sorry about that. So these role IDs, now building identity access management programs, imagine if you could just take a short title and then tie that to the control. This is where we can really leverage automation to help deliver important information across teams, project management statuses. So let's assign a control to what they're going to do. So again, how do we pick a control? We want to understand, what are we doing? Are we deterring? Are we protecting, detecting, or adapting? What phase here, what strategic thing are we trying to do, and how does this play into it? That's how we assign a control to somebody's responsibility. So now we have our network services, they are a systems administrator, and maybe they're going to be responsible for systems. So we can search through, oh, we want them to have security and privacy attributes attributed by system. Let's choose that. Information flow enforcement, that sounds good. Access enforcement, that sounds good too. Maybe we want to have them be responsible for use of external systems, great. And we saw something change in this column. The NIST 853 framework is on the back side of this. And what we have done here is we added that control and we see that the status is selected. We'll dive into how the project management of that control is. And then maybe we want this person to also be responsible for protecting our audit information. Baselines, right? And they're also going to be responsible for baselines. Now, quick aside, configuration management. These are all additional subcomponents that they have to be responsible for. So maybe they're going to be responsible for baseline configuration and reviewing an update, automating. Now, all of a sudden, look, this person has now 9 primary duties and 35 secondary duties that they're responsible for. And we're going to keep going, right? 34, 36 secondary responsibilities that they are responsible for. So we can really make project management an important thing for a person who's got 50 things to be responsible for in your enterprise environment. We have a description of all the controls that they're responsible for. And we have the discussion questions. And over here, we have evidence of the work that was performed. So we can open that and we have our non-repudiation. We dive into that a little bit more. So we can dive into these controls. We see here that our controls are across a whole range of components. Now I want to take a screenshot. I hope I can. I'll take a screenshot later. But we can see, oh, use of external systems, information flow and enforcement. So these are all the responsibilities and the status of the controls. But what if I wanted to know about baseline configuration, right? I'm getting ready to start work and okay, what am I responsible for? I'm now responsible for, this is the description of my role. I develop, document, and maintain, and I have discussion questions here, right? Baseline configurations for systems and components, right, include connectivity, operational and communicational aspects of systems. So this is a discussion that you could even have with your team. You could ask questions around this, right? A lot of times we hear in the community, oh, people are asking questions because they don't want to do the work. They don't know how to ask the question. Now, I did a video on how to ask better interview questions. Go check that out. And then we have the related controls. This configuration management has 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, don't do math in public, has 19 controls. We can share those files. If I had something to share with the rest of the configuration management team, we can change the status. We've selected this control and we're going to put this as a high priority. We have a lot of related controls that go into configuration management. We're going to select this. We have our logging of when somebody was working on this project, and we can define our requirements, right? We need to understand organizations' security priorities and threat models. We can have the estimate, we can write the design, we can do our implementation, right? We can make a responsible team who is responsible for this work, and we're going to put the responsibility back on systems administrator, right? Our systems administrator is responsible for this project. We can build out any exceptions. Maybe our development team needs an exception. Let's get their development ticket processed right now. Let's understand where our organization is impacted by this exception. Our security provision will increase the vulnerability and likelihood because we're processing an exception to a security control. And let's set our duration, right, next 2 weeks. How impactful is this to the process? It's our development team, and we have a test bed that's totally separated from production. It's low impact to the production environment. We can define who's responsible, right? So again, maybe our development, our architecture, and knowledge management, they're all going to be working on this together. Who's accountable, right? Who's going to be accountable for the work? Let's see if we have any managers. Hey, we have knowledge management, cybersecurity management will be accountable. And then who will be consulted? Our project management group is going to be consulted. Now, why are we integrating our project management group and program management? Because they're going to ensure the documentation continues. So we see how our organization is working together, operate and maintain, securely provision are part of the responsible teams. The accountable teams are oversee and govern. The consulting teams is the oversee and govern. And who are we going to inform? We should probably inform another part of our organization. So we have somebody in operate and maintain. You know what? We want to make sure our data, our knowledge management is aware. We want to make sure legal is aware. We want to make sure training is aware, cybersecurity management. They're all going to be informed. And this is an executive leadership project. So all of them are now on the informed list. So they'll get an update as this product changes, and they'll be able to understand the contextual awareness of the project management. Here is how we can start to build tuning for our SIM, and then here we can generate a report. So in 15 minutes, we built an information security program. We assigned roles, rules, and responsibilities to a team, and we didn't have to write a single email. If you want to learn more how to build an award-winning security operations center, follow along for more.